UCL. I'm so sick of that, dude.
I got wrecked in Premier League on Saturday.
Oh, I had a good, what was it, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tuesday
or Wednesday.
Yeah, I was having a sweat until Benzema decided to score in like 80th minute.
And we are live. Welcome to the NFL Strategy Show, Week 4 Recap Edition. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined not by Adam Scher, who was on vacation, but Eric Lindquist filling in. So this one will actually be a good one. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and give a shout out to the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. We're going to break down everything that we had yesterday. Great performances, chalk, unowned dudes, weird stuff that happened, everything that we saw in the NFL yesterday. We are going to talk about it here, but let's start here. Eric, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, it was an interesting week 4. I was doing well, then I was doing terrible. Then I was doing well, then I was doing terrible. And it kind of finished somewhere in the middle there. Lost about half DK, broke even FanDuel. Yahoo got murdered. Good times.
It is good times. It is good times. We got a lot to talk about. It was a really interesting slate. Some chalk, smiggity smashed. Some did not. We're going to dive into all of it. But before we do, I'm going to ask one more time because I want to get the likes up. I did this on the first video that I did today with Matt Gajeski and AB. I want the likes here. I covered for Laffy this morning. I want it to look like they should always have me host this show. Well, we want to get the likes up here so it should look like Adam should never be back and you should be on this one permanently. That's the plan.
I don't know about that. I mean, this is 8 a.m. out here on the West Coast. I'd be okay if he just, wanted to do this one forever.
We can move it further on in the day. We can move some stuff around in the schedule. I don't think that the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show needs to go off at 2:00. Maybe we can get Chris to produce that bad boy. We can push that back. You're going to be on the NFL Yahoo show at 3. We can move this stuff around if we need to. If we need to kick Adam out of this bad boy.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I will say if I'm going to wake up to do anything, I'm going to wake up to talk about chalk. Oh yeah.
Well, that is the first thing that we're going to talk about on this show. It's time to look at the chalk report. As usual, we're pulling up the slant. I believe that is universally known as the best contest we could look at. I'd love to look at the Yahoo baller, but we're not going to be able to do that. Well, I guess I got to start somewhere else, though. We're not going to talk about the slant yet. Big time super chat coming in from Vela, friend of the program, premium subscriber as well. I'm assuming you binked something yesterday. That's usually how this works for the big ones. Otherwise, most people aren't sending in those biggies, but appreciate it nonetheless. That's an outstanding super chat. Thank you very much.
What a mic drop. Doesn't even put a message. Doesn't even care. It would be amazing if we went the entire show and he just didn't even clarify at all what that $100 is for. You just dropped it. Didn't say anything else. Like, what a baller move. Wow.
He sort of did that. He clarified with for no reason.
Oh, I didn't even see where he said it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. For no reason, fam. Oh, well, yeah, that's nice. That's awfully nice. I'm speechless, which is hard for me because I'm annoyingly talkative.
I assume it automatically fills in the zeros, and that was supposed to be just a single dollar. But, what are you going to do? No refunds around these parts.
Nope. No, that's not how this works.
Now, jokes aside, thank you very much. That's really nice to see. Chalkiest plays of the day yesterday in the slant. We had 4 guys get over 22%. No one higher than 23.2. Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Davante Adams. So a good day. And DJ Moore was 5th. Great day to start your name with a D. And then Lions defense, the worst of the bunch. What was your approach for this week with regards to the chalk? Were you looking to get to Derrick Henry? Were you looking to get to David Montgomery or Davante Adams?
I'm always looking at getting different in NFL. And, maybe I get a bad rap from the NBA streets where I love to jam chalk, but in NFL, I just think there's such an edge to being very contrarian. I think that there are the best plays for reasons. Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, they were both fantastic plays. I don't think there was any question about that. But with Derrick Henry up at 8,800, the number of times that, even going for 30, there were running backs. Saquon Barkley was a guy I was much higher on and outperformed Derrick Henry straight up for 2K less. And there's so many opportunities for leverage like that. He was in the best spot. He was my favorite raw projected running back, but it was hard for me to want to get close to that number in tournaments. And it looks like the Colts, Ship My Money, and Rinpack all felt the same way too.
Yeah, 8% owned, via Adam, 8.7 from Steve, 5% from Rinpack. It's just it's a fade of a guy that went for 28.7. Look, that's not shocking.
No,
it's like a 60th percentile outcome for him. 157 yards and a touchdown. It's just a bonkers day. This dude he's really good. I don't know, nothing else to say.
Yeah,
I was nervous about this one.
His rushing prop opened at like 115 and closed at like 125. It was like, what planet are we on where that's a real thing that you're projecting a guy like in a what would that be, like a 35th percentile outcome where he's still going to go for 100 yards?
Yeah, that's nuts.
Stupid.
Nuts. David Montgomery also with another big day. So the two highest owned running backs, you got sort of what you sort of got what you needed with Derrick Henry. Like, big score, went for 28. You can't ask for anything else. David Montgomery paid off a $5,800 price tag very easily. 23 carries for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was a big play for the Colts. 48% of lineups with David Montgomery yesterday.
Yeah, I'm very mad at myself because my cash day was not nearly as good as it should have been. I felt like because I was playing Justin Fields, I had like a stars and scrubs build I just couldn't get away from. Should have gotten away from it. Spoiler alert. But I didn't want to have 2 Bears back and forth with the Lions defense. And I just felt like, you're always punting with defense and you're always going to play the chalkiest defense in cash. And then you're just going to completely get away from it in tournaments. Again, that's a beautiful thing to see that the Colts ship my money and Rinpack did the same thing in that regard. But I didn't want to have 2 Bears along with Lions defense. And I just got a little bit muddled with some of the decision-making there. But in tournaments, I mean, you should just see flat out 19.8%, 22% ownership for the Lions defense in the slant. Like, that's just wrong. That's wrong. People are doing it wrong.
We're going to dig into why that's wrong in a little bit. We do want to touch yet on Davante Adams. Not the best day, 12.5 fantasy points. Didn't get in the end zone. 11 targets. You can't ask for anything more from a targets perspective. 6 catches for 64 yards, and they win the game. Like, oh, well, I guess.
Yeah, this is probably the situation that I'm the most frustrated with because Allen Lazard was a guy that I took a pretty big stand on. I believe on FanDuel, I had quite a bit of Allen Lazard. I just felt like there was some opportunity that was unexpressed there, playing some double stacks with Rodgers. Felt like if he was going to hit a ceiling, it was a combination of Adams, Tunyon, or Lazard. Completely wrote off Randall Cobb, and Randall Cobb underneath 1% on DK. They traded for him. They never really found a spot to really plug him in. And with MVS now on the IR, I think it was kind of a mistake not to at least have a guy who's like near the bottom there at 3K. Like, it's just it was another mistake for that. And, maybe that's a hindsight 2020 kind of thing, but anybody who's going to be out on the field that Aaron Rodgers likes needs to get consideration. And he obviously likes Cobb.
You mentioned the Lions, $2,200, the 4th most owned entity in the slant, 22%, came up with a grand total of 3 fantasy points, 1 sack, 1 pick, too many points given up. Adam Share, 4% owned. The Colts didn't have them at all. 8% to Rinpack. Everybody here coming in well below. If we look at the 150 max ownership, though, 20% ownership going to the Lions still. So I'm surprised that it was as high as it was, just seeing those fades. But even still, a little bit lighter for the 150 maxers. I would have been with the ship my money to Colts Rinpack group just because I don't really totally believe in taking a 20% owned defense in this contest. Did you have any Lions D thoughts?
I thought they were a terrible play in tournaments. I flat out said it on live before lock yesterday. I said, if you're playing Lions defense, you're doing it wrong. You need to be spreading out your defenses to actually good defenses in tournaments, or, getting away from things that are going to be that concentrated, because what do you expect? Like, the Lions in that spot, they're not the Cleveland Browns pass rush. I mean, you're not expecting Justin Fields to just be a turnover machine here in this spot with no pass rush, with no real lethal secondary. It's just a pathetic defense. And so at 2,200 for cash, considering they give you access to so many more players, they're going to be the highest owned, and you plug and play them every time in that format. But when it comes to tournaments, you have the entire rest of the slate to work with. It's just wrong to be playing them.
I didn't even realize how contrarian Rinpack was. That whole column of Rinpack sorted by ownership is just in the red. Wasn't going to anything that people were owning. This is something we like to do, Eric. I know you don't probably see this show all that frequently, given your location on the West Coast. A little early for you, so it's nice to have you. We like to look at the ownership of everyone in this contest that was rostered by someone that played 150 lineups in comparison to the lineup or the ownership in the aggregate to see sort of who were the sharper players on more or less. So obviously Derrick Henry was the most owned player in the slant, 23.2% ownership. Derrick Henry for just the 150 maxers, not first, not second, not third, not fourth, not fifth, not sixth, not seventh. The 8th most owned play in the 150 maxers, 19% owned. So in the aggregate, it looks like the 150 maxers were getting away from Derrick Henry. Davante Adams got the biggest bump up to 25.6%. He was only at 22.5 for the entirety of the tournament. That one didn't necessarily work out well. DJ Moore is the one that worked out quite well. He was 5th in ownership at 19.8% for the entire tournament. He's the 3rd most owned guy for the 150 maxers at 23%. And boy, oh boy, did he pay it off.
Unbelievable. And we were talking about it all week. He was the one guy that felt like it was hard to get away from. And you don't have to be super contrarian, even the way that Rinpack is. And although that should be something to be paying attention to, you can play some chalk in your lineups. And out of any of the plays, I mean, Derrick Henry would probably be number one in terms of like, it would be tough for him to fail, but DJ Moore is Sam Darnold's boy. And it's just kind of been the case. Robbie Anderson did get 11 targets, didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity. A couple of those weren't really catchable, but at least he was a little bit more involved. With no McCaffrey out there, you knew that there was going to be a lot of receiving volume kind of going their way. And it was like a perfect game script too. I mean, the Cowboys got up, it just became catch-up mode, and DJ Moore just kept digging people who didn't play him into a hole further and further as that game went along.
I remember being told in chat we shouldn't be playing DJ Moore. It's too difficult of a cornerback matchup, and he's never going to be able to provide any value at a perfectly reasonable 6,600 price tag, given the fact that he got 12 and 11 targets the previous 2 weeks. Oi, people, don't be looking at that nonsense. It's not going to help you out at all. Don't worry about it. Just play DJ Moore.
He did.
I think he had 2.
He had 2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and yet, here's DJ Moore going quite well. One of the bigger jumps from ownership for 150 maxers and vice versa. Amari Cooper, another guy that took a pretty big jump up for the 150 max ownership. Robert Woods got a little bit of a bump. Lions obviously came in a little light. We mentioned Derrick Henry. David Montgomery also a little bit heavier owned for the 150 maxers. Then we start to get into just general plays that worked out well. Was there anybody that you had your eye on that wasn't really pulling a ton of ownership that ended up working out well for you?
Yeah, Corey Davis was under 10%. I said he was my favorite play of the entire day on Live Before Lock. I had a ton of him on every single site. That 50-plus yard touchdown he had there was very useful. The guy ended up just kind of being a guy that you could add into a bunch of lineups if you wanted to get access to Derrick Henry. It was just nice to see some screenshots for something that you just kind of identified. And I didn't know Jamison Crowder was going to be as involved as what he was, or I maybe would have been a little bit lighter on the situation, but I don't think Zach Wilson is the worst quarterback in the history of the world like everybody else does. I don't think he's very good at the moment, but there's something about volume that exists too. And I mean, 24.1, he didn't blow it out of the water, but he was 5K and gave me access to more Davante Adams, to more like anybody that you wanted to be paying up for. I could play 3 fantastic running backs above 6K. Saquon was a big part of what I was doing as well. That worked out really well. He was under 3%. So Saquon Barkley, I was 6-7x the field on DK. Plays like that, they really kind of stood out. But for me, the one that, if I want to talk on the flip side, just killing me, Travis Kelce, seeing that DeColts, Ship My Money, and Rinpack were all completely off of him at 8,100 the week after Dalton Schultz just eviscerated the Eagles. I felt like that was a too good to fail spot. And I'm kind of mad at myself because Tyreek Hill obviously was the slate breaker. You obviously needed him to win tournaments. But Travis Kelce, the super chalk guy up top there, 16% ownership. I mean, it was just a problem to be over the field on him.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Adam, Steve, Rinpack, all very, very light on Travis Kelce. 6 targets, 4 catches for 23 yards. Probably one of the worst games he's had in a pretty long time.
Is this something just asking you, is this something where you should be taking into stock the money being expressed at other positions where you have so many shots to take on it, as opposed to one player that you're saying, hey, you're the only person in this range. I need you to go for 25 plus. Like putting that money to use at other positions.
I think you could go either way because it's not as if you would have been shocked that Travis Kelce had 9 catches for 120 yards and 2 TDs. Like we can do this in either direction. Tight end was unique yesterday in that there was such a giant gap between Kelce and everybody else that you could sort of draw a line in the sand if you wanted to, like Adam did, like Steve did, like Rinpack did. But Kelce was 16.8% owned in the slant. For 150 maxers, he was 15.9. So for all intents, it was a little bit lighter, but for all intents and purposes, it was pretty neutral. I think you just have to do that sometimes. Like he transcends the position. And honestly, like I hate the fact that tight ends even exist. Like it doesn't, I don't feel like he should count the same way. Like
because if you were a wide receiver, what would he be priced? Would he be like 7,500? Like you'd be just below Davante Adams, like in terms of just raw projection.
Yeah. I mean, just using the projections that are on the screen right now, just the fantasy cruncher projections that show up in lineup study. Davante Adams was projected for 25.7. That was the highest. Travis Kelce had the second highest projection of anyone on the slate that wasn't a quarterback.
Yeah,
and he was 8,100. He was $200 more expensive than Davante. Like it all makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not I don't think it makes the roster construction fun to be like, okay, well, I guess I got to insert Logan Thomas today, or insert random tight end here. It just feels like such a crapshoot. So I hate it. We also got another super chat.
Oh my god,
nice one. Newly minted member of the channel too. I'm gonna whiff on the proper pronunciation here. I'm gonna go with Vuboy.
Instead of your boy, is it Vuboy?
Vuboy? I don't know. I apologize for my lack of proper knowledge and how to say. You never know if it's like someone's real name or it's some gimmick where somebody's trying to get me to say something stupid. I just never know. Either way, thank you very much for the super chat. Binked a ticket to the FFWC, spent hours over the weekend using Awesemo tools as part of my process. Wanted to thank you. Buoy. Okay.
Buoy. So, there we go.
Okay.
Buoy.
Got it. Well, congratulations to you. I mean, picking up the ticket to the live finals, fun time, man. They're fun. They're fun to go to.
Yeah,
and
incredible.
Obviously huge monetary potential for you as well. The value of that ticket is very large, but even just as a day or two to get away and have some fun, it's a good time.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go to Miami with Rinpack and Denver with Rinpack. Humble brag. Good times. I will say, at least those were like, one was a single game showdown and one was like a 8-game MLB slate that started at 5:00. So at least those were pretty nice. I got to say, I feel like a football one, I'd be a little bit more on edge for where, you're getting up early, you go through the process, and I'm already an antsy person. That gets me a little anxious. So best of luck to you. Enjoy. That's fantastic.
I proxied for Alex in New York, like the first year that I was here. FanDuel and DraftKings ran their finals on the same day. So he went to wherever the hell the other one was, and I went to New York for his. But I had no responsibilities. Like I wasn't putting a lineup into it. I was just there to get truly annihilated. And boy, did I. I was not ready for full open bars of top shelf liquor.
You were hoping for a big check like Happy Gilmore. That's kind of what you were looking forward to.
That oversized check went to one Steve Buzzard, aka DeColt.
It's good times. It's good times.
I didn't think about it for the longest time. Steve and I actually talked about this on Friday. I hadn't thought about it for the longest time. His like Twitter wallpaper picture, whatever the hell that's actually called, like not his actual icon picture, but the background one is him holding up his check with Ray Lewis. And I was just like, man, I was at an event with Ray Lewis, and I was like, oh, that was the same place. That's the same time we were both there. And now I can picture back, like I can see us sitting on the bus to events at the same time. I didn't know him at the time. He didn't work for us yet.
It's incredible.
Oh, man. It's like I was there. Well, like I saw he's got he won like a championship belt for it too. That was on display at the Meadowlands while we were there. And I was just like, I remember that belt.
I remember waking up that morning, that one time, and then rest of it's gone. But yeah. It's really good times. It's really hard to not. I mean, open bars are dangerous things already. How about an open bar with sports and a bunch of like fantasy guys around hanging out? Good times. Oh, yeah, it can get lethal fast.
So they rented out a bar in Hoboken,
Okay.
for the day to watch the games, full open bar. So the Henny was flowing for me at that point in time. And then after we left the bar, it was another open bar at the Playboy Club. And that was an entertaining time.
Oh my God. Yep. FanDuel or DraftKings?
FanDuel.
FanDuel knows how to party. My God.
Alex went to the DraftKings one. I went to the FanDuel one. Here it is. This is Alex's name tag from it.
Ooh, look at that. That's sick.
It's got a magnet on the back, so it just sticks to like my post for my monitor. Nobody cares anymore. Let's talk schedule for the rest of the day. 1 p.m., the Awesemo betting show on the Awesemo Odds channel with Eitan and Ben. At 2 o'clock, we've got the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show. Eitan doing double duty. Ben doing double duty. Laffy actually showing up for his job today, doing that show at 2. The Yahoo NFL show, Eric, you will be back with Pete at 3 o'clock. The deeper dive tonight, that's going to be a big one. We've got the Josh Jacobs news to look at. Laffy and Matt Savoca starting it off at 6:30. Eric, you will be back to close it out with Matt Kajeski for Live Before Lock at 7:30. Plus, free content today. Projections for Showdown. You don't want to miss it. Good times. You get the best thing that you can get for us. You get our projections for free. No cost to you. All right, we got to talk about the best plays of the day yesterday. Obviously, there's only one place to start. Tyreek Hill, he was 8K. Owned 10% of the time in the slant. Nothing too crazy. Bet you were happy if you had parts of those shares. 12 targets, 11 catches, 186 yards, and 3 TDs. Tyreek Hill. What is there to say?
Good God. I mean, the guy has the highest ceiling. The thing is, I wouldn't say that it's random when he puts it up. It just feels like his ceiling just blows away slates in a way most wide receivers. It just doesn't even happen. Even Davante Adams last season, there were a number of blow up spots, but 50 burgers are outrageous from the wide receiver position. And in a spot like this too, you just needed him. And if you didn't have him, you didn't win anything. It just comes down to that. And so, yeah, congrats to everybody who's over the field on him. I was way over the field last week. Sad I didn't just pull the trigger again here.
He had 40 in week 1 and 50 in week 2. Insane. He had a 60 burger last year. I forgot about that. Yeah. 13 for 269 and 3. Woof. Dumb. Anyway,
that was the Tampa Bay. That was like all in the first half too. That was good times.
Deebo Samuel with a big day, 6,500. He was 12.5% owned. So pulling a little bit of ownership. 38.7 DK points, the second highest score on the slate. 8 catches for 156 and 2. Were you on Deebo?
No, and that was my probably break point for DK. I just felt like Deebo was pulling way too much ownership with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm here. It was kind of a decrepit running back situation with Elijah Mitchell, but I just kind of sided with Trey Sermon in tournaments. I wasn't going to play Trey Sermon in cash, but I think I kind of fell hook, line, sinker, I think, for 5K there. Really liked the way a lot of my lineups were with that. I was able to get up to that top stack of Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So that was fun. Way to go. Put that money to use. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. But Deebo Samuel would have been a different day had I had more of him, but it was one broken play that just ended up, and I knew my slate was over at that point. It was just, as soon as that play went down, I went from winning to definitely knew I was going to be losing.
We got 2 more rushing touchdowns out of Sam Darnold. He had 2 last week. He had 1 in week 1. So he's up to 5 in the first 4 weeks. Not only just running into the end zone, but running as fast as he can away from the New York Jets, which seems to be working out pretty well for him. Although they did not get the W here, but he was the 3rd highest scorer. We got to DJ Moore, who we already talked about. And then Tyreek Hill light, Cordarrelle Patterson, 3 TDs yesterday. Amazing. 5 catches, 82 yards, 3 touchdowns. How much Patterson did you have?
0% on every site. Do you want to talk about another guy? So, but my slate wasn't over at this point. It was Saquon Barkley, and I had a little bit of Tyreek Hill. I had some decent lineups going into the afternoon before Deebo sunk it, but the Cordarrelle Patterson thing, I just don't understand. I don't understand it. I need to find out some way to understand it because it obviously matters a lot to making money in this NFL season. He was 6K over on FanDuel, and we had our ownership like going like 7-8%. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. He was 15% owned in the Millie. It was like 14 or 15% owned at 6K. Cordarrelle Patterson. And maybe this is my Vikings bias where I saw that and I was like, this can't be real. You could play him at running back or wide receiver. So he had dual eligibility. And so I think he probably sandwiched into more lineups over there as opposed to where you had to play him over on DK there. But like that made no sense to me. And the guy maybe is just like a focal point of what they're trying to do, which he's never been a focal point of anything anybody's ever tried to do with him before. But congratulations to him. I don't get it. What I'm hoping is that his price doesn't go through the moon with the new salaries here everywhere and that he's chalky next week. That's kind of what I'm hoping.
6 targets turned into 5 catches. 5 of those catches were 3 touchdowns. Like, that's scary. That's
what I'm saying.
His price goes, 3,700 week 1, 3,800 week 2, 4,600 week 3, 49 this past week on DraftKings. You have to assume that goes to like 53, 54, 55, at which point you need those touchdowns. And you can't assume that he's going to be scoring 3 of them every week. So we'll see where we end up there.
We got Loco saying Patterson clearly has a role in Atlanta. Do you expect Atlanta to score 3 touchdowns through Patterson every single week? And also, if he's 5,500 next week, that volume without the touchdowns is not what you're going to want out of a 5,600 Cordarrelle Patterson.
It's wild. Look, price is everything. So pay attention to it moving forward. Terry McLaurin, big day. Saquon, big day. Derrick Henry, we've already touched on. I'm skipping through all the quarterbacks. We know who was good there. David Montgomery, Deontay Johnson went for 20 plus. You've mentioned Corey Davis, Randall Cobb. I know you mentioned a little bit ago. Bills D was the D that you were looking for. They cracked the code 4,300 against a just god awful Houston Texans team. Put up 23 fantasy points, 3 sacks, 4 picks, and a fumble recovery. They gave up 109 yards.
It's so bad. They're so bad. And also, so 4,300 is a large number for a defense, but that's why you play them in tournaments. And I should have had more of them. I kind of fell into that mid-range. Cleveland actually did all right. I mean, they held Minnesota to 7, and Cleveland was a bigger stand. I just think that Cleveland's defense can get things done in a pass rush than in any matchup, in any spot. And Minnesota's offensive line is not that good. Kirk Cousins has had a lot of time for the first 3 weeks, and he wasn't going to have much time here. But I didn't get on Bills D. 23 fantasy points out of a defense. Yeah, you're going to kind of need them.
Yeah, it ends up being pretty necessary, given the fact that the next highest scoring defense was the Ravens with 11. Am I reading that correctly?
Yep. You were looking at a 12-point gap. I mean, it's 6 points when you help, like when you hold somebody, under 7, when you hold them to 0, you're there's a chasm that you're going to create just from that 10 points you initially get. And then you throw in a pick, you throw in a couple sacks here and there. If you're not punting all the way down and getting access to something else on the top end, you get one of these top end defenses to do something meaningful like that, you're kind of screwed.
Let's touch on the most owned player from Adam, from Steve, and from Rinpack here. Adam's most owned play, 44% to Alvin Kamara, went for 15 fantasy points. I'm going to assume that Adam expected Alvin Kamara to get a target yesterday. He had none. 26 carries for 120 yards, no TDs, and no targets. That's just a bad break. If you knew Alvin Kamara would get 26 carries yesterday, he's probably the most owned player on the slate.
I had a ton. I played him in cash too, which like nobody else did. And yeah, I expected some targets to show up. And I mean, this is now 3 of his 4 games where he's had over 20 carries. He had it once in his entire career up until this season. This is a run-first football team. This is a defensive-centric football team, and they're going to try to grind out games. I mean, they almost grinded this one out. They probably should have in this spot. But, I mean, it's such a weird thing to be looking at Kamara in a different light, and maybe we need to wait for that price to adjust a little bit. But as soon as it does, I mean, this Taysom Hill thing is still out of control. I'm never going to get over it. I'm never going to be okay with it. And it happened again this week. And I mean, you can just see it happening where Kamara gets them all the way down inside the 10 and then, well, whoopsie, we're just going to go elsewhere with it.
This just got retweeted into my timeline. Former Awesemo.com employee, Adam Pfeiffer. Alvin Kamara only has 5 more catches than Trayvon Diggs this season. Amazing.
It's not ideal.
No, not so much. Highest owned plays for the Colts. It's a tie. 1 is David Montgomery. That was 48%. That must have went very well for him. I'm sure he's not mad at all. The second, $5,100 Mike Davis. Unfortunately, Mike Davis unable to get too much going on. 13 carries, just 2 targets because they were too busy letting Cordarrelle Patterson score.
He and I have a Mike Davis problem. And at least, I mean, for me, it's just best ball and year-long stuff where I continued to play him. This week was the first week where I'm like, nope, can't do it. FanDuel, trap price, going to be super chalky. I'll just kind of go elsewhere at the position. DK, I did have a little bit, but nothing like meaningful. I mean, I totally get it. It should be a situation, at least, and people were giving me flack on Wednesday. I had said, Mike Davis should be getting more of that backfield. If you put him in a role, if you're going to, pay him money and bring him in from Carolina to fill that same kind of role that he had in McCaffrey's absence, why don't you utilize him in a remotely similar situation in Atlanta? And apparently Cordarrelle Patterson's just better to them. So there's that.
Obviously. I feel like we shouldn't touch on the first guy here, but we don't really need to dig into Rinpack's exposures all that well. He took a stand in the slant. 100% Josh Allen, 74% Emmanuel Sanders, 68% Cole Beasley, plus another 58 to Stephon Diggs. He cornered the market on the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills won 40-0, and this did not work out well.
Dawson Knox. It was Dawson Knox vulture season. Back-to-back weeks, Dawson Knox kind of jumping to the top end of the board. Really the only viable piece with Buffalo. I mean, you didn't want to get to Diggs, who only put up like 21 at his number.
7 catches for 114 yards. He just didn't happen to get in the end zone.
Didn't happen to get in the end zone. So comparatively to other plays at the position, cheaper, DJ Moore, even Amari Cooper, that would probably be better just to save the money, even though he didn't perform as well. It's just, it's a tough thing there. I mean, Cole Beasley, I completely forgot about that idiot. He completely stunk me too. He was another wide receiver stand that I made. So, I mean, in the middle of McLaurin, who I felt really good about, and Corey Davis, who I felt really, really good about, those calls, you got to be honest about it. And Cole Beasley definitely sunk me too. So Rinpack, I'm with you, my dude.
68% ownership to Cole Beasley for Rinpack. 2 targets, 2 catches, 16 yards. Woof.
Good times. Good times.
I'm going to assume that when that was all said and done, Rinpack would have preferred to stab him with something other than the COVID needle.
I don't think he would have had a choice. But yeah, there was no bring back involved with any of that either. I mean, I would assume you would see Cooks somewhere up there, but I mean, he just basically said annihilation mode. It was like an onslaught.
The highest owned Texan that Rinpack had was Brandon Cooks at 3%, Anthony Miller at 3%, and Jordan Akins in 2 of his 150.
Wow. And how much Dawson Knox did he have? Did he have any?
He had, let's see.
Oh my God.
2 lineups.
Oh no, Ryan. Oh man.
2 lineups.
Yep. Thanks,
so
Sam Darnold.
I think this is an interesting point to make. And obviously, I don't think that Rinpack was putting his full bore into his preparation yesterday. Might have had some other things going on. I'm quite confident that is not intentional for him, that if you're going to run 100% Josh Allen, like he simply just didn't take the time to make sure that he was getting to multiple options. He would never advocate for not playing Dawson Knox and only playing the 3 wide, like that. It's just a strategy that doesn't make a ton of sense. I get the sense that Rinpack did this in about 5 minutes.
I don't want to speak for the man, but I'm assuming probably. Look at Jordan Klein over there. He's like, FaceTime with the man. He had a good weekend.
Right. It happened. Look, that kind of stuff happens. We're all in
life
situations where
opportunity cost too. It's a little bit of that.
Yeah. You're like, all right, well, I'm playing today. So this is what I did for the Premier League on Saturday. I didn't have everything built out. It was like 9:40, and I was like, I'm going to be like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to watch some of these games. Like, I just want something to sweat. So I immediately enter 5 lineups into some sort of 5 max. And it gets to like 9:55. And I was like, oh, I haven't even run a crunch yet. I'm not getting my Excel sheet built out fast enough. So I just had to run like some generic ass crunch and jam it in. All 5 lineups did not cash. It was brutal. All because I just wanted to have a little bit of action. Never rush yourself into playing if you're not prepared to do so. It's rarely works.
Soccer, because you have 30 minutes. The lineups usually come out. It's like 30, 35 minutes ahead of time. Sometimes you get like the full hour, but sometimes it'll be like 30 minutes before they hit the pitch. And then you have a different goalkeeper than you expected. You'll have different defenseman punts. You'll have Eden Hazard, who becomes like the highest owned play on the slate in certain spots like last week. Nobody gives a shit about UCL here, but it is a fantastic thing and it usually overlays. So I usually like to target. I'll always fire last second at that too. And then Benzema, of course, just scores every time, which is annoying, but whatever.
All right, let's shout out the presenting sponsor of the show before we start taking a look at some of the successful lineups in the slant this week. No House Advantage is bringing you player prop contests. You don't have to worry about fantasy points. You're trying to get over/under player props, whether it's the NBA, which is coming back so soon, everybody. And I'm really excited to be talking NBA. I've already rebuilt my model sheet version like 7.0 since 2014. It's going to be a good time. Nice. We've got MLB contests at No House Advantage, NFL, PGA as well. It's 100% peer-to-peer, 500 plus player props. It's the biggest provider of player props in the industry. And all new users get a $25 deposit bonus when signing up using the promo code Awesemo. They have mass entry capabilities if you want it. There are big prize pools if you're interested. We have a ton of free tools for No House Advantage on the website that will help you put in better lineups. Just simply put, we have good stuff for No House Advantage, and you should come check it out. Sign up there using that promo code Awesemo. Get yourself some free money on that first deposit. Ghetto Farmer Boy, Josh, you doing the morning show again? No one has told me that I'm not doing it, so I assume that I am, which I'm excited about. Probably going to move it from the 6:30 mark to 7 o'clock, just so that I don't want to die by the time we get to December. But it's 1,000% happening, barring someone telling me that that's not. I don't know why it wouldn't happen.
Okay, well, beautiful. I mean, the process show, for those who aren't familiar as well, it's fantastic. The man goes to add your funds and just does freaking work.
It's fun, man.
Your spreadsheet's outrageous too. I mean, I started like building something out a little bit. It's I'm just going to probably copy whatever you do here at this point. So I'm excited to watch that show for the next month and kind of start putting my own stuff together here. But I mean, the process of NBA is just so fun compared to every other sport because, you know, there's factors that there's no other sport where it really shows up. I mean, you can get guys who get ruled out in the NFL, and then it's like, well, yeah, you play Alexander Madison or you do whatever else. In the NBA, there's just so many other things at play that make it a little bit more like chess.
Yeah, you can't just, I mean, if you're using our projections and our ownership and stuff, you can get there without having to like really lock yourself in. But if you want to try to do anything that from its core, so much manual labor. And that's what the process show is for. It's, you know, you get an hour and a half to figure out rotations and work your way through it. But nobody wants to hear about me doing an NBA show on an NFL recap show.
We literally just went through soccer. So I think NBA is probably an improvement.
Absolutely. Brian in chat said, I seen you in the $3 birdie. We were going back and forth. Love golf. Yeah, I played golf this week. We were talking about it before the show started. First time I've played golf in a couple months.
I think we play every sport, Josh. I think we play every sport.
I got brutally destroyed in MMA on Saturday. That one was not good.
I did not do that on Saturday. Thank God. College football got brutally destroyed. Thanks so much, Alabama and Mississippi. Or who did they play? Ole Miss. Yeah. Ole Miss, the quarterback was like 45% owned and put up like 2. It was fun.
Theodore Parsons nailed it. In NBA, you don't have to worry about some third string bench guy outscoring LeBron.
It's very true. Randall Cobb season, baby.
Right. You don't like, that's just not a thing. And if it is a thing, like that guy isn't owned. Like LeBron rolls his ankle and so guy goes for 50. Like that guy probably didn't have any ownership to begin with. And it's ultimately meaningless.
Yep.
All right. We're going to look at the winning lineup for yesterday's slant. And this guy finished first and third, which is fun to see. Winning lineup is this. This is a dude of life. Jalen Hurts, Antonio Gibson, Cordarrelle Patterson, Corey Davis, Davante Smith, Tyreek Hill, obviously, Will Dissly, Deebo Samuel, and the Bills D. So he went Jalen Hurts, brought it back with, stacked up Davante Smith with him. Run back with Tyreek Hill seems pretty reasonable to me. Both running backs, well, sort of both running backs in the Atlanta Washington game. Cordarrelle Patterson, obviously a running back, but not both running backs. I've got nothing to say. That's a really nice lineup.
It's beautiful. One thing that I talked about also on the Live Before Lock show, sorry to keep referring to it, but I was talking about playing Jalen Hurts in order to just run back Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce together. That's something I did in like 2 or 3 lineups. I thought that it got you exposure to him without having to pay up to Mahomes. And I like some of the builds for what I got at running back a little bit more. Obviously, I love the Corey Davis play. Obviously, I hate the Cordarrelle Patterson play. Deebo Samuel, I mean, that was the difference maker. I mean, that was just a massive score. And when ownership is relatively flat, I mean, 12.5% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's quite a bit. When you have a tournament like this, 40,000 entries, and in NFL where everything is very, very flat, Deebo Samuel, one of the more owned wide receivers, you just kind of needed him alongside Hill. And that's what he got here. And then the pure nuts basically around him there. Will Dissly, just a pure punt. And considering Travis Kelce did nothing, the tight end position sucks. Why not pay just $2,600 to do it?
Yeah, it is crazy to see that this lineup got to first with what amounts to nothing from Will Dissly. 2 targets, 2 catches, 5 yards, and a fumble.
It's just the tight end is garbage.
Womp.
Let's get to college football where we have we don't need the super flex. We just need another flex position. That'd be fun. 2 flexes. Jesus.
2 flexes.
Wow.
Look at those guns. I don't got a ticket for that gun show. Dude of Life also finished in 3rd, as we mentioned. Jalen Hurts, Patterson again, Zach Moss as the second running back, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, John Ross, Dallas Goedert, once again, Tyreek Hill, and the Bills D. So he stacked up Hurts with Goddard, brought it back with Hill once again. We got the running back defense mild stack for the Bills with Zach Moss and the Bills D. Can we talk about John Ross for a second?
Yep. We should do that.
So John Ross had 4 targets, 3 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. He was the flat 3K, went for 16.7 fantasy points. And just to find out specifically, because this lineup got to 3rd, John Ross was in 45 of the 39,215 lineups that were in the slant. How much John Ross did you get to?
I mean, 0% because Curtis Samuel was down there at 3K as well. And I liked McLaurin. I liked Heineke. And so, I mean, if I was going to 3K, I was playing Curtis Samuel down there at the very, very bottom as well. But John Ross, I mean, it makes sense. He's a former 1st-round pick. Didn't work out for him in Cincinnati. They didn't really find any time for him out there. But in a new system, we know that he can be a deep threat. We've just really only seen it like a handful of times. And if you're going to play a wide receiver at 3K, might as well be somebody who has freaking upside. So there's that.
We need to mock from chat. Yeah, I said it. Expletive. I forgot my pen. Can you bring me one of the white ones? I'm sorry, baby. When you're off. Obviously sent that message incorrectly. That was supposed to go to, I assume, your lady, but your significant other. Did not work out well. You sent it into our chat. Chat, have at it. Let loose. That one's a fun one.
How do you mix up YouTube chat and maybe he's on his computer and Slack chat or something?
I assume he's on a Mac is my guess, but I don't know.
Well, best of luck to you finding that. That's important to everybody involved. And now we're all emotionally invested in you finding what you need in your life.
That's so great. What a terrible message to send out to people that you don't want to see. So John Ross ended up in the 3rd ranked lineup. He also showed up in the 793rd ranked lineup. Dude of Life showed up with him once again in a mid-tier lineup. But 45 cases of John Ross in a lineup. One of them got to third.
It's beautiful. Again, 3K is 3K. I mean, we say it in NBA, we say it in MLB. 2K is 2K. It's like you get down to that bottom tier, and if you just are straight out punting, I mean, I do find it surprising. I mean, he had $200. He could have got to Westbrook Akina. He could have gotten to like rational plays at that point. But John Ross, again, if he has any role, I mean, you had no Slate and you had no Shepard. Maybe that's somebody we should have been looking at. We've never seen it before. Hard to know how many snaps he was going to play, but sure enough, if he catches one, it's probably a deep ball. So there's that.
All right, now we're into another very fun piece of this show where we try to find the worst lineup that someone put in on. Like you'll get some where, they put in a dummy, they didn't play it, or you get zeros. Mm-hmm. I am now looking for what ended up being the worst lineup that anyone could have played. Like the actual lowest scoring lineup here scored 47 fantasy points. Alexander Madison was in it. Rex Burkhead was in it. This is like mostly a Rex Burkhead, by the way, went negative yesterday. 1 carry for -1 yards. I don't trust that one. I want to see one that is a legitimate lineup. And I think it's pretty easy to go to this one. From 150 max or Squirrel Patrol, not putting in garbage lineups, Baker Mayfield, DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook, Cooper Kupp, Nick Westbrook, Odell Beckham Jr., Travis Kelce, Will Dissly, Texans D. It hung 54.8 fantasy points. It is the third lowest scoring lineup of anything that actually had guys in it. That one didn't work out all that well. Cooper Kupp with 11.4 fantasy points, the highest score in this contest. It finished 39,194th.
It's the regression monster. It was bound to happen. I'm glad it happened this last week where, again, I could have had an even worse week if it weren't for that. And also, why were people excited about playing a chalky Odell Beckham Jr.? I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. And, Wednesday, I've never, Josh, gotten more hate, just people DMing me on Twitter or reaching out after the Wednesday ownership show where I said that I'd rather have Cole Beasley on my team than Odell Beckham. And it was not a very good, you heard me, Jordan Klein. It's Odell Beckham, and maybe he's more talented for sure. And, I don't know what's going on with Cole Beasley.
He was
like a crazy individual, regardless of your stance of anything. Just seems like, maybe keep some of your stuff yourself, perhaps. But I just, nobody liked the fact that I didn't like Odell Beckham this week. And again, Minnesota, that would have been a good spot. I think he got overthrown a couple of times. Baker Mayfield did not play well at all. Obviously, as a Viking fan, I watched that whole game, but my God, Odell Beckham, just not a guy you want to be playing when he's chalky. Play him when he's really, really low owned because there's always some upside there. But it could not be possible for me to dislike a football player more.
Yeah, he took a steaming dump over everybody's lineups, and someone probably took one over him. Best I can do with him. But so for a high level player, like it's just as hard to get to first as it is to get to last. Oh, if you're trying to make like good lineups, it's just like he did not put this lineup in thinking that it was going to suck. And it was the third lowest scoring lineup of everything. There were plenty of 150 maxers at the ass end of this. Another Squirrel Patrol. I slew foot you. TJ or TJ is down here. Who else?
I mean,
Dynasty.
Yeah, Minnesota's been in some shootouts, and the more people talked about it, the less that game became interesting because you have a Cleveland pass rush that obviously, I mean, you don't expect them to do what to Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota offensive line, what they did to the Bears the week before, but it's a really, really good combination. Jadeveon Clowney on one side, Myles Garrett on the other. That's a defense you're going to want to be invested in, even in tough matchups, just because of the upside that can be there. They can create some issues, and they obviously created a lot of issues with a definitely decrepit Dalvin Cook out there. He shouldn't have been playing. I mean, Dalvin Cook playing is an egregious decision. So I'm not sure who let him on the field yesterday, but should have just been Madison. Should have tried to figure out something else to do there because he just wasn't right.
This should be good. Now, this won't surprise you. I just sorted down by Steve's lineups, by Adam's lineups, and by Rinpack's lineups. Rinpack did not make it into the top 30 of if you combine all 450. Obviously, that's going to happen when you concentrate on Josh Allen. The Colts dominating the top of this. Got to 37th in the slant. So here is Steve's best lineup. It was Taylor Heineke, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin. No bring back from the Atlanta side. Edwards-Helaire and Tyreek Hill. DJ Moore. Will Dissly once again. With a lot of Will Dissly showing up today. David Montgomery and your Minnesota Vikings. Almost got there, the Colts. You needed to get rid of the crappy Vikings team and Will Dissly, and you could have done something else. But at $51,000 or $5,100 total, really difficult to make a ton of changes there.
CH and Hill together. That's kind of fascinating. I guess just targeting the offense. That's kind of where Kansas City, they're priced up in a way where you can capture a crazy amount of upside and you just want to have pieces of the offense. And because of Mahomes' price, you don't necessarily need Mahomes because he's not going to go rushing for a touchdown and then have those skill position players go off. It's usually through the air as is. So, I mean, that's kind of a fascinating thing when you're trying to make rules in Cruncher and it's something that's tangible. A lot of times I'll be limiting to one running back, wide receiver, tight end, unless I have the quarterback involved. I think it's fascinating for a team like Kansas City or a team like maybe Buffalo or some of these really high octane offenses you get in these shootouts to just have two skill position players. Don't necessarily need to have the quarterback.
Yeah, we saw it a lot last year during these recap shows when it was myself, Adam, and Laffy, where you would get a running back and a wide receiver from an offense in like Millie Maker lineups. So it was so much so that we started, Adam and I had extended conversations about changing up the thought process for it and allowing that to happen was something that we used to block ourselves out of too.
See, that's lovely. I learned something on this show. That's a beautiful thing for me to have. I've been focused so much on like secondary correlations and having whether it's, I also find it interesting. The Colts, didn't he have like nearly 50% Mike Davis and his top one is a no bring back 3 Redskin or Washington football team combination. I find that fascinating.
Got to cancel Eric. We don't use that word around
here. Potatoes. Sorry. It's the Washington football team.
All right, I'm going to hit you with the trivia question. I sorted down to the top 392 lineups in the slant. That is the top 1% of the contest. Who do you think was the most owned quarterback in the top 1%?
I mean, I would think Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to probably end up going Sam Darnold.
Jalen Hurts first, 23.5%. Sam Darnold second, 21%.
All right, well, flip them around.
Mahomes a close third.
Yeah. Mahomes again, but he also probably priced you out. Him and Hill. It would be tough to imagine a line of lineups being able to get to Bill's defense in that scenario too. So that kind of speaks also to getting access to a different combination, having Hill and Kelsey with Jalen Hurts as opposed to putting Mahomes in that stack.
Best Mahomes lineup got to 22nd. Hurts, Heineke, Darnold, and Prescott make up the bulk of everything before that. Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback in the number 9 lineup in the slant. So that's kind of interesting to see.
Yikes.
Who do you think the most owned running back in the top 1% was?
In the top 1%? I mean, still probably Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is 4th.
Jeez. Wow.
David Montgomery
then.
47% owned.
Okay.
It drops all the way to 30% of the lineups in the top 1% for Cordarrelle Patterson. Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming in 3rd. Derrick Henry 4th.
Okay, that makes more sense. And he talk about pricing somebody out. He definitely prices you out of getting to Tyreek Hill in a lot of lineups.
Tyreek Hill is the number 1 wideout. I don't have to ask you that. You obviously know that.
DJ Moore's got to be 2.
DJ Moore is 2. Do you know who 3 is?
Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin is 4th.
Oh, God, I'm doing good at this game.
You will not be surprised by 3 either. Like, you know it.
Oh, my brain is just like not coming to it right now.
Deebo Samuel.
Oh, duh. Yeah, no, I hate that guy. So cool.
When they're obvious like that, I don't have to like tee you up for it. This will be the fun one. Who was the most exposed tight end in the top 1% of lineups this week?
I want to say Will Dissly.
Will Dissly is 2nd at 12.2%.
Oh, God, that would have been so fun to have that be the numero uno. And just
he was definitely the most exposed guy in every lineup we clicked on.
I mean, Dawson Knox would make sense because he was the highest performing relatively, or Dalton Schultz because he could have been a bring back for DJ Moore, but I'm guessing it's neither of them either. Let's go. Hmm. I don't know who it would be.
It would be Dalton Schultz, 23% owned, twice as much as Will Disley.
Secondary correlation, what up?
And this one will be the fun one. Who was the most owned defense in the top 1% of the slant?
Don't be the Lions. Don't be the Lions.
The Lions are fourth.
Okay. That's all that mattered to me is the Lions weren't there. The Bills would have to be one if you're talking winners, but I mean, they were sub 4%, so maybe they don't show up in as many lineups. Let's go with the Jets. Or
the Jets are second, and just to let you know, the Bills are third. I wouldn't have run you this far if the Bills were first. That would have been dumb. A lot of Bills guesses in chat. Sorry, folks. You don't have it yet. Who's the number one defense?
Bills,
top 1%.
Titans.
The Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, there it is. Wow. I mean, they were more popular. Basically, that's just kind of a de facto plug and play defense that was popular. Like, weren't they over 10% as well in the slant or not? They were like around that on the milli.
Let me look. Oh, why don't I just remove that filter?
So if you had the Bills, you were in a better position to win, but in the top however many lineups, a sub 4% defense isn't going to show up nearly as much, especially when having Hill and having Samuel is what matters the most.
Colts were 10.6% owned, the second most owned defense behind the Lions. Yeah, so what you're looking for in those situations for trying to like funnel down to the 1%ers is going to be, generally speaking, ownership and success, because you can have a ton of success, but if you're 1% owned, it's really hard to even push yourself up to that top piece because you just don't have enough of the right combinations for the rest of your lineup to get there. And that's sort of what the problem was for the Bills. 3.9% owned. You can only get so many lineups into that top section just because of salary and just general ownership. Do we have anything else we should touch on for week 4 in the NFL?
Oh, this is a blast to be able to chat about this. I mean, for me, just kind of focusing on the process, not becoming obsessed with a 1 week sample size. We're at 4 weeks here now, and I still have question marks on a lot of different things, Cordarrelle Patterson, Mike Davis, but there's a lot of situations that are still kind of yet to be developed. And we're going to have a lot of Trey Lance talk possibly this week. Looking forward to that. Oh my God.
Yeah, should be pretty interesting. We're going to have tons of NFL content coming up throughout the week to talk about all such things. Guys, that's it. The week is over. Week 4, for all intents and purposes, in the books. We've got one more coming up tonight. Plenty of content to watch for it. And then we start it all up again tomorrow for week 5 in the NFL. Good luck tonight. If you're playing Showdown, make sure you're using our projections. They are free this week. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Adios, everybody.
Matching Adam's energy.